Good morning. We'll call the meeting to order of the City of Santa Ana Zoning Administrator at approximately 10:33 a.m. on Wednesday, May 17, 2017. This is the time and place to consider item number 1, minor exemption 2017-01. And just for the record, a public hearing in this matter was held on May 10th at 10:30 a.m. Which the zoning administrator did hear public testimony and receive evidence and documentation relating to this matter. Again, for the record, please note that the action of the zoning administrator is final following consent of the Planning Commission unless an appeal to the Planning Commission is filed with the Planning Manager within 10 days of the date the zoning administrator action, or unless set for a public hearing by the Planning Commission. An appeal from a decision or requirement of the Planning Commission may be made by any interested party, individual, or group. Madam Secretary, have we received any additional written correspondence after the public hearing?
All written correspondence has been distributed.
Great, thank you, and that is also circulated in the staff report. Thank you for that. While the public hearing is closed, I'll invite the applicant to comment if he has any additional comments.
Yes, I do, actually. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, I just want to, I was raised to respect my elders and, I just want people to know that, I'm not asking for any sort of special privilege. The height is strictly based on historic and aesthetic principles. We spent a lot of time designing it. It's a $200,000 project. It's going to increase the value of the neighborhood. But I don't want people to think that, we're asking for it for other reasons. And so I want to just make that clear that standing across the street, standing on the sidewalk, it's basically based off scale of the building. And our worst fear was if you build it too low, it's going to be a disaster, and it will be an eyesore, and everyone will have to look at it forever. So I just want to clarify that because I think it's important. That's all.
Thank you, sir. Are there any members of the public that are present that would like to comment on this item before the zoning administrator issues his decision? If so, we do request that you fill out a speaker card just so we have your name and information for the record. Comments are limited to 3 minutes unless an extension of time is granted by myself.
My name is Nancy Gallivan. I live at 1912. I've spoken before. We enjoy having Michael and his wife as our next door neighbors. This is not a personal thing. We've lived at our home for 52 years and seen this area gradually become more isolated. We do not want a 5-foot wall. We believe that Michael's decorator, designer who is from Pasadena, has frankly taken him for a ride aesthetically, because if you've ever looked at it, and I'm sure you have as a group, looked at artistic renderings of projects, they eventually look nothing like the finished product. A 5-foot wall will inhibit almost all the women in our neighborhood from looking into this property. I happen to be 5'5", so I could probably just barely see over the wall if I stand on tiptoe. This also will probably determine his continuance on the Mills Act, which specifically, I've read the Mills Act, prohibits any fence, wall, or hedge from obstructing the public view. This will definitely obstruct the public view. If you think a 5-foot wall doesn't obstruct the public view, I don't know what does. So we are in opposition as a group, and we will be filing an appeal to your proposed acceptance of this variance. And I just hope that Michael and his wife would change their opinion and go for a 3-foot wall, which would be very acceptable to everyone in the neighborhood, because we can continue to enjoy the view of the property and the openness of the feel of the area. We have given you some large photos that show that we are aware of what it's going to look like, because we lived with a 6-foot fence for 2 years, and this much difference in a wall is not that great when you're going from 6 to 5. And those are my comments. Please, we will be appealing your decision if you grant the variance.
Thank you. Yeah, if you could just fill it out after, that's fine.
Excuse me?
If you just fill it out and drop it off.
I will.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. I'm the husband of Nancy, and my best frame is I've delivered thousands of babies, and many of them right from Santa Ana. They live all over the place, and my concern is more of risk. If this wall goes up as I thought I saw it on the plans, 5 feet, coming down maybe 4 feet within my property, and my driveway is right next to the Ness home. And I also admire Mr. Ness, and this is nothing personal, but I have great respect for people that might be run over by me or somebody else, because if this temporary fence comes out all the way to 4 feet, I can't even imagine how much difficulty I'm going to have for visualization backing out of my driveway. In a normal driveway where there is no obstruction, there's maybe 15 feet of blind spots, especially with my SUV that I have, that I park in the driveway. And when we had the temporary fence, which was up for 2 years, that was problem enough, but at least when it came out part of the driveway, it then went around these trees, and it gave me a little advantage that I could see a little bit more. I am terrified of backing up in my driveway for a 5-foot fence coming all the way to 4 feet. I can't even imagine why it would be allowed, and I think it's against the city code of Santa Ana. I think the fence is supposed to be 10 feet in, and 3 feet at the most. And I have an understanding of why someone wants to have a nice fence, but my thing is safety. And the last thing I'll say, that in California, the latest statistics, there were 232 children run over and killed by people backing out of their driveway. This astounded me when I saw this, and then if you know the height of a traffic cone, it's about 28 inches. And when you have these blind spots and then you add a fence to your blind spot, can you imagine a 2-year-old child is about that high? And I am terrified about trying to back out of my driveway the way it's going to be set up. I just can't imagine that it would be allowed with the Mills Act or even the city code of Santa Ana. But anyway, that's my feeling.
Thank you, sir.
I'm for children.
I spoke before. I think this is the same group that was here a week ago, right? So I don't want to repeat myself. Just let me make a few comments. My name is Eugene Andres. I've lived in Florida Park for 46 years. I've kind of sensitized to this issue since I'm the chairman of the beautification committee for Florida Park. So I get into these issues, and I told Mr. Galvin we have the power to do anything. You know, after the last hearing, I tried to figure out, is there a solution to this where this basically the Nesses get what they want and the neighborhood gets what they want? And from reading the report that was submitted, it looks like the Nesses want a part of their front yard to be private, so they could enjoy it as a backyard or a private yard. And I understand it, because most of their yard is in the front as opposed to the back. And I was thinking, if their plans were modified, whereby from on 19th Street, their garage is quite a ways down from the street. if they would build their 5-foot wall contiguous with their driveway and then come east with that wall, but not to the front. And they would capture a lot of space in their yard that could be private, and they could fence it any way they wanted. But as far as the front of the property and the property on Heliotrope, it would be limited to 3 feet. That way, they would have privacy on part of their front yard, but it really wouldn't destroy the ambience of this house. And I'm sure you heard from a lot of people, this is one of Floral Park's premier houses. We all love this house. It's probably my favorite house in the neighborhood. And to see it blocked by a 5-foot wall, I think is really a shame. And also,
Thank you, sir.
Hi, Ed Marashi. Again, I get back to the code enforcement issue and the safety issue where we have neighbors in Floral Park who have been told by code enforcement within the past couple of months that their hedge that's near the driveway, being 6 feet or 7 feet or whatever, had to be brought down to the 3-foot level for safety. I mean, and just like was iterated by Bill, it just makes sense from a safety point of view. But I could see a minor variance where somebody could make the case, listen, this is kind of a busy street, 19th Street can get busy, and the code does allow for a 4-foot fence or wall when it comes to arterial streets versus a 3-foot for a residential. So again, I would hope that he would consider maybe going down to a 4-foot where you do have the visibility for safety purposes and things like that, and then also, again, the visibility for any passerbys that are looking at the home. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, it's me again. Alberta Christie. I'm speaking for the rest of the city. Okay, you have to look at this as to the rest of the city. And like I said, when this ordinance was, it was equally applied to all over the city. When you grant this, you're now affecting everyone else in this city. In addition to that, I just want to let you know the highest and best practice that a city has when they approve overwhelmingly and is supported by the community overwhelmingly is to be equally applied, which this one is, and not to grant special favor because of the fact that it's an injustice considered by the rest of the city. And that's exactly why this ordinance was crafted, so that it would be equally applied to everyone in this city. They talk about privacy. Our lots in the rest of the city are smaller, but however, whether they have a 3-foot fence or not, they're able to have their privacy. They're able to have their children play out in the front backyard. They're able to have their pets with them in the front or backyard. So why is this so different when the rest of the city have their privacy, have, their enjoyment of their privacy with compliance of this fence ordinance? Once again, we're not Los Angeles, we're not Pasadena, we're not Glendale, we're Santa Ana. We're the pioneers of Orange County, and they stood together as neighbors. And once again, neighbors throughout this city are standing together with Floral Park saying, please deny this variance. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir,
May I speak for the moment?
please.
Yeah. Ed Tornell. I've lived on with my wife Patricia on Heliotrope Drive for 42 years. And I want to pick up what Dr. Gallivan had mentioned, because if Dr. Gallivan or anybody using his driveway backing out injures or kills some child, or even any other human being, even a dog. A lot of people consider their dogs just like children. I will consider that to be the fact. Dr. Gallivan, if he's the one, unfortunately, who might injure or kill a child, will be sued. But the city of Santa Ana will be sued also. They will be brought into the lawsuit. They will be defendants because they allowed a wall to restrict the view of the backing up driver to the left or to the right. And that would be considered part of the cause of the injury or the death. Also consider that many kids, children and everything, you won't have time to see them if they're walking. You may have time to see them if they're walking, and you pick up on the last minute. But a lot of them ride tricycles, scooters, skateboards, bicycles, and they'll close a distance in a second. You've got to be able to observe them as far away from your car as possible in order to have a fighting chance not to injure anybody. So that's what I want the zoning commission to consider, that they're setting themselves up for a lawsuit, and that's quite a hefty lawsuit if damages are awarded against them. They will be brought into the suit. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Can I just say something addressing the safety issue, because I haven't really addressed that. After the hearing, Bill came over and we talked after the hearing last week, and I offered a possible solution to that side, possibly considering doing wrought iron or something a little more transparent. And when he found out that it was going to be on the property line, which I paid for the land, I'm not going to give him 4 feet of land just so he can open his door. But I did offer, I was trying to get into a reasonable solution, and I felt like it just fell on deaf ears because he couldn't wrap his mind around the property line aspect of it. So I have children, I have dogs, I hope to have grandchildren someday, and no one is more protective of kids than I am. I mean, I would not even allow my kids to play in the street when we lived on Ross. So, I've taken all this. It's taken us a year to come up with this design. I've taken everything into consideration, and am flexible. I think that there's ways to get transparency with this wall, maybe we have to work on the design, but I think that the height issue isn't the issue. And once again, that's all.
Thank you.
May I respond?
I would prefer not. I've taken substantial public comment.
No, I was responding to the comment he made about me personally.
I appreciate that, sir.
No problem. I'll talk to Michael later.
Sure. And for what it's worth, we as a procedural matter, I typically like to give the applicant an opportunity to conclude and make some concluding statements. But is there anybody else in the public that would like to comment before I render my decision in this matter? Okay.
Is there any possibility that the fence could be a wrought iron fence that you could see through?
Well, the problem.
I don't want to. I want to keep some decorum. I will say that the application, the decision I'm rendering is on the application that was submitted. So to the extent the applicant desires to work with staff on a new design, or to the extent there's an appeal and subsequent negotiations among property owners and that ultimate design is approved by a higher body, that's beyond my jurisdiction, but I am prepared to issue a decision on the application as submitted. And seeing no further comments.
Question? One last comment. Is there a specific number of feet from the driveway on that application? Was it 4 feet? He mentioned on the...
It's 4 feet from the sidewalk, but the property line is the property
How about from
line.
my driveway?
The property line is the property line, yeah.
Right.
Again, to avoid some back and forth, I'll ask staff to discuss the location of, my understanding is that the property line question is a side property line and the location of a fence on that portion of the lot. I would appreciate some clarification for the public on that issue.
Yes, sir. Thank you. The fence is going to be on the property line on the north side of the property, which separates Mr. Ness's property from, I believe, yours, Mr. Gallivan. It'll be on the property line.
He's concerned about how far back from the sidewalk.
4 feet. That fence along Heliotrope from 19th and Heliotrope going north, it'll be 4 feet off the sidewalk in towards his property, all the way to your property line, and then it goes west
Driveway
on your
also
property.
would be 4 feet?
Yes, and I'll show you the drawing afterwards. We'll go through it together. But yes.
Thanks very much. That was my question.
Okay, at this time, I am prepared and will proceed with issuing my decision in this matter. Before I do so, I'd like to thank the public and the applicant for the passion that they bring to this proceeding. The Floral Park community is clearly beloved, and for good reason. It's become clear to me throughout these proceedings that, how unique a community it truly is. And I thank you for the time and the substantial written and oral comments that I've received. And reflective of that passion, my decision in this matter is took several days to deliberate. I reviewed all of the comments and documents submitted, and the decision is quite lengthy. Of course, attorneys tend to be verbose anyways, but I endeavored to set forth my rationale in detail for reference to the public and for the applicant as well. So with that introduction, my determination is to grant the application as submitted and adopt a resolution to that extent, as well as the separate statement of findings of fact that I'm adopting and that will be available for the public's review. Briefly, though the complete rationale is outlined both in the resolution as well as the statement of facts, I've found that the property and the residence do have some special characteristics. Those characteristics avoid the concern that this decision will set precedent for future developments in the neighborhood. Like any variance, again, that finding of unique circumstances must be made as a condition of approval. Those specific situation or circumstances here include the size of the parcel, over 17,000 square feet. In fact, it includes two separate parcels. The relatively limited backyard space given the size of the parcel. The situation of the location of the two-car garage and the driveway situated behind the residence was further restricts the backyard space. The corner lot location of the property along at least one relatively busy street relative to the area, 19th Street to the south, as well as the large available location setback areas in the front that would allow the applicant to utilize and increase the available outside space in a private and safe manner that is protected from vehicular traffic, pedestrian traffic, and associated noise and other environmental issues. Turning specifically to the height of the proposal, I found it notable that a 3-foot wall is permitted by right in the front yard. In fact, along the side and along the residence property line to the neighboring lots, my understanding is that a 8-foot wall is actually permitted. So while I appreciate the safety concerns expressed by the public with backing and ingress and egress into the neighboring parcels, the proposal is actually shorter than the code allows for that portion. Again, turning to the height, the residence is also unique, not only in Santa Ana but in the community. It's a large 2-story structure. It's characterized by symmetric dimensions and a box-like look. Has prominent arches, pillars, windows, and railings. Further, the residence is situated slightly elevated from neighboring parcels in the public right-of-way because of the property's grade. These features, I find, are special circumstances that justify approval of the application. I've also found that the application is consistent not only with the zoning code, but the city's design and design guidelines and development standards. Those standards, in fact, specifically address accessory structures and fences and walls on historic properties. The design standards recognize that a wall of appropriate design, appropriate materials, and elements actually enhance the historical nature of the structure and increase property values to the neighborhood. Though reasonable minds can differ, that is the policy that is outlined in the code. And again, I won't belabor the point. My complete rationale is set forth in the resolution and statement of facts. Again, granting the application as submitted. I will note 2 conditions of approval. And that approval includes the finding of a categorical exemption for CEQA purposes as a Class 1 facility, as well as a Class 3 project, and making findings related thereto. 2 conditions of approval that were not originally recommended by staff, and though they may be redundant of staff's administrative authority, I would like to state them and have them as part of the approval. The first is that the wall is to be designed, constructed, and located in substantial compliance with the architectural renderings, designs, and plans submitted by the applicant during the public hearing. I'd like some assurances that the public is going to get what I've approved, and that the final design, construction, location, and ongoing maintenance of the wall is to be in strict compliance with the final plans and specs approved by the city. The second condition is that the exterior portion of the wall facing the public right-of-way be landscaped in accordance with the landscaping plan that's approved by the city, and that the landscaping be maintained at all times in accordance with that plan. That is my decision. Again, this decision may be appealed to the planning department, to the planning commission within 10 calendar days. And that concludes this matter, and we'll move on to public comments on non-agenda items. Seeing none, the meeting is adjourned.
Is the city attorney here? I would like you to tell me how to file an appeal. Because I emailed about 4 people asking for information. No one has answered my emails. Are you Holly?
No, I'm Sarah. I responded to your email 3
Or
times.
anything else.
I do have.
Maybe it went to junk mail.
It's Go Easy Bill at
Yes.
AOL, correct?
There's a way.
Yes, but what's your name, Holly?
Sarah Bernal.
Sarah Bernal.
I didn't get anything about that from you. I only got the agenda. Okay. I'm sorry.
It was an interest to you have questions about the mill tax agreement. So my question, my email just verified that if you wanted specific information on his mill tax agreement, in order to go through a public record.
you the city attorney?
Market Foundation.
So,
Yeah.
the forms?
Yes, I'll let you get absolutely welcome to the planning commission. I'll get one.
Good, thank you.
I'm sorry, Holly's out at the time, so I'm
So-
taking the case.
This is quite confusing, so,
Clear
okay.
that.
You
But this
are
work-
actually
You know,
listed
where we
as
go
the
seven.
planning, the head of the planning, the zoning.
Where.
Well,
Oh my
good, congratulations.
Yes, because it kept saying, so I sent my preliminary information to you. Well,
But
it
Sarah,
was
Sarah and
attention.
Canada did.
Okay.
Canada got emails and Sarah did.
Yeah, we got it from
You did?
comment.
Oh,
Went
yes,
to the clerk.
okay, I did, but that was later. I went, okay, any.
Okay, so the appeal process is, for